Now, the second big policy opportunities, I think you already heard a presentation about it this morning, is the new EU-wide solar standard via the EPBD, Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, requiring solar installations on all new public and C&I buildings above 250 square meters from 2027, on all new residential buildings from 2030, and all existing C&I buildings when they undergo a certain renovation, but as well as all public buildings that have to be equipped with solar panels. And in Solar Power Europe, we modeled a bit the impact of this law, and what we found is that in the C&I sector, we expect additional 92 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2030. So that's the orange line that you see on the slide here. We really see from 2027 on a boost in demand for rooftop installations in the C&I sector. But then also on public buildings, even much stronger, with 92 gigawatts and cumulative expected capacity by 2030. So this is a huge opportunity for solar companies to focus on this options. Also, this is already implemented in many EU countries where you can look at how solar companies are doing this. It has to be noted that it's very early in the process here, and many companies are actually it came into force either in 2023 or in 2024. So now we are having first experiences, but not really fully fledged experiences from there. Now, solar companies can use this by integrating their processes with construction processes. With this new solar standard, solar becomes an indispensable building component. It's really, as you have a smoke detector, you will also have a solar panel. You either install the solar installation with the design of the building and with the construction of the building in the first place, or with a renovation, which of course unlocks a lot of opportunities to collaborate with the construction industry, leading to lower costs for installers, lower soft cost for sales and marketing, but also lowering the construction process by smoothly integrating it into the construction process. There will be a much more rooftop space available, and it will also trigger some discussions around how to finance this policy. So what you should expect is that your local governments or your national governments have to think about how to finance this and find new ways to bring this to the market. So please consider collaborating with construction industry to make use of this opportunity. Now, the very last point that I want to touch upon in this presentation are financing opportunities. Here, we have a broad overview of public financing support. So the EU and EU countries offer quite some opportunities to finance C&I solar. So the most common schemes are grants with an overall volume of around 80 billion, but also a lot of loans, both dedicated at a little bit different purposes. So grants usually at earlier technologies with viability gaps to cover also risks, but then also loans covering more higher interest rates or collateral requirements for the more developed technologies. For off-takers and energy companies, there are also financing tools for on loans, equity, and also blended finance. There's an overview available that I can share with you. And in general, SMEs and larger companies are among the most benefited parties for these schemes. There are also a number of additional opportunities here. So third-party investment is, of course, really a booming trend. We see a lot of successful implementation. Then guarantee schemes, very much on the rise to target the off-taker risk of the off-taker going bankrupt. There are schemes available for bundling installations to secure financing for these installations, also lowering the risk of the off-taker. And then, especially for energy companies, there are opportunities to finance through bonds. So, with this to say, all these things are discussed in Solar Power Europe, so please consider joining our group to learn more about this process and to be really at the first step on this. Thanks a lot for participating.
Thank you, Jan. It was a very, very nice presentation. I believe you have to travel, so I guess we'll leave the questions for the panel. So thank you so much for being there. And now
Okay.
Panel discussion, for which I now invite TaiyangNews Managing Director Michael Schmiller to take it over from here. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Anu. Yeah, great conference so far. I learned a lot. Thanks also to Jan. I think that was a great overview from the regulatory side. Yeah, I would like to ask now Johanna, Juan, and Shudong to switch on their cameras. And then we have now basically 25 minutes, half hour for our panel discussion on C&I, solar market and business developments in Europe. And the idea is simply that we just want to reflect today's event, simply talk about, again, current market situation from the demand side, product side, what's the current drivers and barriers, and maybe also in comparison to the residential segment, which we discussed yesterday. I think I would like to see this as a casual conversation. I think we cannot share a coffee over a table, but let's try to be as casual as we can digitally. So let's maybe look at the market from you. I think let's go first to the companies, to Jinko and Hopewind. So how has have the recent month been for you? You know, we've seen also all these presentations. Market has been growing strongly, but we know also that end of last year we had all this inventory issues, and then market was somewhat picking up in the last few months. But of course, prices are not too much fun these days for producers at the moment. So maybe if you could share some of your experience, Johanna, in the C&I, especially in the C&I segment. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's as you mentioned, Michael. So it was let's say a difficult end of the year situation with a lot of stock and a lot of price let's say changes and reductions. So nevertheless, we are quite confident in this industry. So I think that the most reference experience was the period of COVID, where all industries were down and solar actually performed. So these ups and downs is a constant roller coaster for our industry. We're quite used to, and we know that we have to have a strong environment to really survive those downs that we always have. And last year was the tougher one, I think, and this year will be remain like that. But in terms of commercial and industrial, I think I will agree with the predictions that Juan mentioned. So we see this steady growing. It is not a peak, it is not a boom, but it's steady and growing. And this is how we feel also our customer demands. We are maybe a little bit more positive. For us, it's not 5%. For us, it goes around 6% in our, at least in our experience, right? But this is how we see it. And the only thing is, I think we have to be very careful in the, let's say, separation of commercial and industrial and rooftop, because it's a line that is becoming more blurry. So we have clients, and especially new buildings, that in terms of, let's say, a scale, are already a commercial and industrial application from our, let's say, understanding, but in terms of services is residential. So this is where the tricky part comes. But we see a study, let's say, growing, and we're confident that this will remain like that at least until 2030 from our perspective. A bit more positive than 1% more positive.
Very nice. Shudong, how are you seeing the market?
Okay, so I think why C&I is so important. According to the Europe gigawatt evolution, C&I will take up nearly something like of this solution. So C&I is key for totally Europe solar systems. Utility take about nearly something like 1/3. Residential take about something like 1/5, something like this way. So this is the first one, why we want to attend the C&I. Second issues for stocking and also for innovation. I must say C&I is most innovative area should our industry should focus. Why? But for utility, because price is very aggressive. Everyone want to take the price. And for residential, you know, the final customer is some consumer. They are not so professional. If you like develop a very do a lot of marketing, they can accept your high price, because last year I used working Echo and just in China. So but for C&I customer, they thinking, okay, you should have very good quality and also very good branding, but they are not accept so price sensitive, and then it means that some new brand, some newcomer, maybe will be easy to be successful in C&I. This is why Hu Ming choose C&I to develop our inverter business in the beginning. So I think now, because as we already got into solar finalist, I think there's more opportunity for Hu Ming to contribute more innovative solution to our industry and to working with like Jinko, the leading solar company, and also Wood Mac, leading solar media, to be better in better position for energy transmission. This is my feeling.
But if you look at the markets, I think so. What's your feeling so for the rest of the year? I think so we can look at Europe, but maybe also beyond. So how do you see the C&I market, the segment simply growing?
I can see it will growing because in C&I market, they don't have some strong stocks. They are normally our distributor don't stock C&I normally, not too much. So it means that still very good. And also, you know, and also I discussed with China and Echo because I used to very close to them. They're thinking about even the price, you know, the solar panel price is coming down very quickly. But still the leading technology will take the marketing leaders. For example, N-type, like Jinko or China, like high power, or maybe Echo, like this one. Similar like Hu Ming, or like the high efficient power inverter can take marketing. So can still take marketing. It doesn't matter. And also it is similar like some installer, and also C&I market is also very have a lot of technical requirement for installers. And the installers, they also, some leading installers, they also can catch up C&I market. So I think the C&I market is a very good way for some innovative company to join, to start a business. This is my feeling. So this is the most easy way, yeah. But for utility, they need something like very strong background. Like if you're installer, you want to develop a utility, not so easy. And for residential, you need a lot of marketing. In fact, and also currently there's too much stocks in residential.
Okay. So Juan, how would you take the comments from the industry? Is this confirming your view, or would you?
Pretty much, all things considered, that differential in Jinko's own expectation, on market expectations versus what we're forecasting is quite minimal. So like I take that as a form of validation. I think to summarize things, because I think it's important to just keep things succinct. I see two trends clashing in a way in the C&I space. This is true to the residential space as well, but let's focus on C&I. That downward trend of electricity prices, we need to understand better, at least at Woodmac, we need to understand better like how that very clear drop in wholesale market prices, how that translates into retail rates. I think with everything happening around T&D infrastructure and they need to fund that, I think that there's going to be increasingly more of a tax component, more of a T&D charge component to the final retail rate bill. But still, like that 40-45% component of it, it's clearly severely going down. So that's one of those trains. And then the other one, the counter effect for that, it's clearly policy. Things like the EPBD, but not only the EPBD. And the reason why the way we see the EPBD impact in different markets, it's quite different from market to market. And you know, certain countries, like Jan was saying, Germany, France, Flanders, in Belgium, like they're ahead of the timeline of implementation. But the problem with the EPBD is that it is not a regulation, and there's significant leeway that member states can get away when it comes to watering down the directive with not only loopholes, not only minimum surface requirements, but also like the severity of sanctions if off-takers are not complying. Leaving that aside, policy, I think it's a fundamental driver still. And like we are seeing from the Commission, by the way, that's another story, whether we're going to, like how the European Parliament's going to look after June the 9th, okay, because that's another big factor there. But like we saw from the Commission, and we've seen from Repower EU first, EPBD later, like we know rooftop from a policy design perspective, it's a priority. I think it's for two reasons. I think it's because as an industry, we understand that it's better to develop in areas of Europe that are already heavily affected by human development. So from an environmental perspective, behind the meter makes so much more sense. There's a very practical addendum to that, which is that we simply don't have enough ground surface in a lot of the continent, of course. And then the other component is job creation, right? We once calculated this in the US at WoodMac 5 years ago in some work we did with SIA, with the US Solar Association, and we thought like same megawatt built for a utility scale plant versus a distributed PV project, per like the same megawatt built installed, we had one job, one unit of worker, like one job created for a utility scale plant, and that equated to 10 in a distributed PV installation, simply because of economics of scale. So I think these two variables are really supporting the policy side of the equation. And in my mind, those are the two, you know, I see a glass ceiling because of the lack of a sense of emergency with retail rates and market saturation. Of course, Germany, Netherlands, very much for markets, France as well, but perhaps policy and perhaps even additional national mandates on top of the EPBD can really help us shatter that glass ceiling. That would be the summary, even though it's still a long-winded comment.
But how do you see that when you are in the market, Johanna Schudong, actually? So I think, you know, we have the challenge of decreasing wholesale prices, power prices that came down quite a bit. We still have volatility. We see I think Jan talked about it, Juan talked about it, about the I don't know, grid charges like we have in the Netherlands. I think in Denmark we had that also recently. That was more for bigger systems. But of course, we will see more and more of this because the DSOs simply are seeing challenges, and probably the demand side is not fixed as quickly as they would need, and the grid not expanded as it would need it. So I think that this might take longer. So, but what are you seeing from your customers at the moment? So when you try to kind of go to them and tell them, hey, there's a business case, also like Tore has shown in his simulations how much it makes sense. Huh?
Yeah. So well, we have it's also, you know, when we talk about Europe, it's difficult also to talk about one behavior only. Europe have different behaviors per region. So we have, let's say, a quite new focus in new markets that are being also mentioned. I think Juan also mentioned some of them, of the Baltics and so on, where this new trend is also coming. Romania, for example, is a great market, was mentioned yesterday. Also, we see more interest even for storage with more local policies also that are supporting this trend. Same for grid and other markets where we see. And also, similar to Juan, we are taking into consideration what will come in terms of policy. So those markets that start, especially the no saturated one, start reacting in terms of demand for us. So the only thing is that maybe how we see as a global company, the commercial and industrial relies also in our share in Asia, where this area is actually strong growing. We have some political and policies playing a role there also for that. So for example, I think in December last year, the renewable Minister Energy proposed a green energy hydrogen development. So this triggers some local demands in Asia. So we have this experience of local, and when it comes to country by country, we see more, I will say, early adopters for the market, right? In these new markets that are having a new jump, like Romania, so those markets are easily demanding from our side. Other markets are saturated, and then you have, of course, the experience of having maybe better PPAs in the past, better conditions in the past that lowers down a bit the intention. But yeah, I think there are also mindset drivers that we are forgetting, and may not be a lot of, let's say, price driven and political driven in certain markets. Is more a conscious decision of being part of the energy transition. So we see, yeah, in some markets it's slowing down, but we also see new markets becoming interesting and also quite early adapters. This is our perception.
And are you seeing that more and more? Because I think if you we're working at Solar Europe, Solar Europe is working at the global market outlook at the moment. And if you look at, actually, there's so much growth from China. I think most of the growth is basically from China. And for other region it pales. But that means, on the other hand side, there's also so much potential for new and emerging markets. And that's, as you said, in regions like in Europe, that's Romania and countries that have been not really on the solar map so far, but also in Africa, probably there's huge potential for C&I and many other markets. So are you seeing that around the world then, basically?
Yes. So I mean, we work, basically, I am responsible for Europe, but I keep an overall perception also within the company on what is happening. And we also see in Latin America and some many regions where this is also becoming a new trend. So I mean, from the perspective of Jinko, which acting globally, we see the whole trend. So we know that maybe in Europe is a bit, let's say, steady and slower than in other regions, but in the overall, the trend is still positive. So we see that also for Latin America.
And are you seeing also that, okay, on the one hand, we have decreasing electricity prices, interest rates were, I think the rise has stopped, at least here in Europe. And actually, I think there's now on the horizon, on the near horizon, actually decreasing interest rates also. So that means that actually plays into especially projects and project financing. And on the other hand, of course, there should have been also some price elasticity, because the products are so much cheaper. So are you seeing that on the customer side? Because I think here probably businesses are much more sensitive than residential customers. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we also have experienced that let's say, in the biggest installations that we have within the limits of commercial and industrial. Yeah.
Okay. Shudong, are you also seeing now increasing demand again because of low prices and maybe also better financing looking better, or? Is there a driver from these boundary conditions?
Tommy?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's very similar as 80 years ago. 80 years ago, German residential, especially in storage, 80 years ago in Germany, the residential electricity price is something like 20 euro cents. And solar tariff is something less than 10 euro cents. There's a 10 euro cents gap between the consumer and you buy and you sell. And now I think it's be similar in the C&I. I found like normally in most European countries, C&I tariff is something like 20 to 30 euro cents, something like that. But finally, if C&I want to sell their solar electricity to the grid is only 10 euro cents. So nearly about 10 to 20 euro cent gap. Now, this is why I think C&I storage is booming. So I just think about the C&I storage will start booming. I think this time maybe there's no storage company coming inside. I think will be similar situations even next year. Now I think found a lot of companies still booming. Germany, Netherlands, a lot of C&I customers, they want to install storage because the system is not valuable to sell electricity to the grid because there's 10 euro cents. Why not to use by own? So this is some big change. So I think C&I storage will be booming with solar and also inverter in next year. 6 years just coming up.
Yeah. Are you seeing that as well, Johanna, actually, that there's that the attachment rates are dramatically increasing for C&I or are increasing? Because I think in the residential segment, they have been very high. Yeah? So, and also they stayed high, interestingly, after the energy crisis. So we're just looking into Czech Republic. I think there the attachment rates are over 90%. So that means basically every solar system that's being installed comes with a battery system. And are you seeing that also translating into the C&I segment?
We see well, not that strong like rooftop. We see that trend now coming on. I mean, I think also it takes a while, especially in those countries where policies are implemented for incentivization of this market. It also happens that it changes very fast. So we already had that experience in Spain, where something came up and it was removed and everything, the whole plan, let's say, went down. So this experience, I think, from those markets was also a bit of instability, I will say, in terms of policy, delays a bit the reaction. This is our perception, but we are starting to see that transfer to C&I. So we are also new players in storage. So we are also going in a, let's say, in a slow reaction, but we do have interest very clear in what is called rooftop and small residential. And now we are starting to see in such markets also the C&I interest.
But you're getting big. You just announced actually that your cell factory even is.
Yeah, we're going to have our cell factory. So we're very proud to announce that. We are already having 4 gigawatts our factory. So it's also a big step for Jinko. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But for sure, I think that something that it was mentioned already is that this market change and this policy driving is what we also expect to have as an incentive for many markets. And we see again this switch already in some upcoming markets. I forgot to mention Czech Republic, it wasn't mentioned yesterday. So for us, those markets are becoming a new niche that we should also cover, and we see an interest there.
Okay, Juan, you would agree also? Are you seeing that also, storage becoming a major topic in the C&I segment?
Depends on the region. It depends on the specific country in Europe. Really, I think what we see, and there's a dedicated energy storage team at WoodMac. So there's two analysts that all they do is focus on the storage space, but very tied to dynamic tariffs and whether time of use rates as opposed to flatten on household negotiated rates. And I think in the future, increasingly very tied to the use of BPPs and the adoption of BPPs and really creating additional revenue streams from an ancillary services perspective for aggregated DERs, for aggregated distributed batteries, not only on the C&I side, not only large industrial behind the meter, but also even residential, because you can, the possibilities are endless once you can really aggregate DERs. Right now, attachment rates were booming, of course, like following the energy crisis in Europe. But from my understanding and from my conversations with our storage team, like things are quieting down, right? To the extent that that installations are deaccelerating as well in the near future, right? Because of the impact of retail rates. I think I wanted to specify something or just clarify something, because I think at some point on the discussion we were talking about residential versus C&I, and I'm interested in Shudong's and Joanna's opinion, because I know they touch on Resi as well. The way I sum it up always is that I from everything I'm seeing on officially reported data every quarter, but also when I talk to installers and when I talk to big players that are in both segments, residential, it's always more reactive to any variations in retail rates. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Germany, for example, right? Like the white flat, like the white flash of like getting your energy bills cutted, and that sense of urgency being removed from the market, always more drastic, more dramatic in residential and small scale commercial as opposed to larger installations. That's my view on it. And I'm interested in whether the rest of the panel would share this, because I think at some point, I think we've kind of mentioned the opposite. And I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's an interesting point, like corporate off takers, you have corporate mandates. It's not only a question of European or national policy, it's a question of like ESG requirements within the confines of, corporate strategy, regardless of whether a government mandates it or not. You have energy managers that have very complex models on energy cost on a daily basis. That's something you don't have in residential, right? So I think that's part of why. And residential customers, I think, tend to have a more of a short memory span, if you want to say that. Like we tend to forget, oh, my bill wasn't completely tragic for 3 months. Perhaps I can push this decision to like the next couple of years. Whereas for a business, it's hundreds of thousands of euros potentially, if not more, right, on a monthly basis. So I think that sense of urgency is very different. Interested in what Joanna and Shudong are seeing there. And also the attachment rate component, I think, was really booming, but I think it's quieting down, right? To go back to the original point on storage.
Yeah, well, to answer, Juan, your question, I think it's also a bit different in regions. So you are right in, let's say, in the more mature markets, this reaction from C&I, or let's say from large rooftop, the higher range of this area is more from a business perspective. So it makes sense. They run numbers, they go for it. As you say, corporate targets and so on are main drivers. And nevertheless, in other regions, the same scenario, same, let's say, scale, they are not that fast in implemented. So I have been involved in some discussions. They evaluate, they see the numbers, but let's say the initial investment, if they think that the policy will change, this something is the prices, stability and so on, it plays a different role. And regarding the memory of residential, I'm not quite sure, because in Germany we get from people, at least from the installers I have told, or from the, let's say, big companies that we work with, that they really remember the best conditions they had in the past, and they are not that happy now, with less motivation to invest. So it's something, maybe it depends. So I experienced both. But I agree that if we, let's say, close Europe has a overall, you will have what you said. So that residential may be more sensitive, and that commercial and industrial they will react faster because it's economic driver for their business. So this is a general, yes, I will agree on that. We have particular markets where this may not be the case, at least from our experience, even if it makes sense. So then we need to run a lot of numbers and convince, and yeah, I think also financing plays also a role in such markets. So yeah.
Okay, Shudong, maybe you also quickly on that. So how you see the reaction from C&I customers versus residential, if they are also have to take the bigger picture, and that's why the electricity rates are not so much playing changing electricity rates are not so much playing a role.
So I think the bigger impact for C&I a customer is the interest rate for bank. So, you know, in Greece, for example, the interest of bank is something like more than 5 to 6 or even 7%. And then nobody want to invest too much in solar business. But in the Europe, in Germany, in UK, for current situation, if the interest rate is very low, like only 2%, 3%, and then a lot of C&I customers thinking, okay, if I have money, but if we can get some 7 or 8% feedback for like return on investment, maybe it's valuable. So I think we need more link to the bank, the interest rate of bank. This is the key issue I just think about. And another thing is such kind of interest calculation should be very transparent and also very can be trusted by this C&I customer. But normally my customer told me they spend a lot to communication with some final customer, okay, what kind of interest rate, what kind of return investment. Normally they don't thinking like it's not, they will spend some time to thinking is really good investment for them or not. This is the second thing. The third thing is for engineering, because the bigger investment for C&I, normally at least the investment they start about 100,000 euro or to some 1 million, some levels. So it's a big money. They also thinking about in the internal process, they need somebody to talk with you and then make the internal process can happen. See where something since I would be thinking some kind of thing. So it means that such kind of like maybe kind of seminar, like webinar can be extended to the final customer. So this might be the future. Because final customers have a lot of concern. We are only talking about more technology side, but there are some lot of concern about financial operation and delivery. This is something like we should let them like make very quick decision. Okay, it's my time to invest C&I solar systems.
Okay, thanks. Let's maybe talk briefly a little bit also about products, because I think that's also a question. Do we have actually the right products for the C&I segment? So I think it was interesting when I think Ignacio was delving a lot into that, and then he was coming up, okay, now I'm getting the middle point actually. So this is residential and this is C&I and utility. And so what I also felt a little bit is actually that it's actually getting more and more. At some point there was really an effort in the industry that we try to get to standards again. So I think we had 210, we had 182, now we have 182 by 199. So I think all these rectangular cells are so different, and all the modules sizes, I think that's probably not making production cheaper when you have to have such a big offering. The question is still, do we need that? Is it just that companies really want to differentiate, or is there also a need from the customer side that they need such a big variety of products? Maybe Johanna.
Yeah, this is also a trend, because if you're talking about artificial intelligence, there'll be more and more energy demand in C&I customer. For example, for calculation, do something. So energy consumption for C&I customer will increase. And similar for solar panel, if you can offer high power solar panel, and then the LCOE is also can be cheaper. And similar for inverter, I think its trend will be high efficiency, high power, and high density. So for solar systems.
Okay, thanks. Joanna?
It's a tough question, Michael, because I think Jinko started with a crazy portfolio of I don't know how many different modules and sizes, and of course, standardization is always a goal. We finally got an agreement on sizes. So even though you see these different cell sizes, there is already a trend between manufacturers in a standardization of module size. So let's call it like that. You have the frame, whatever you put inside may be different, but the frame stays the same. So this is what is happening with the new utility scale module, which has a standard size, even though we have maybe different options. So some of the manufacturers are offering 72 cells. We are offering, for example, 66, but the size has remained the same because, of course, we know when it comes to installation and it comes to large scale planning, and also in terms of planning, you always need a plan B or C. So this gives more confidence also for decision makers that they say, okay, if we don't go with this manufacturer, we go with B or C because it suits our plan in terms of construction. Of course, I will prefer that everyone goes for Jinko, but that's not the point here. And the only thing is if residential have a real product, because residential and commercial is, like I say, is a very blurry area. We do have, for example, a module that I did not mention because it does not come in the Neo Green, but it's a 60 cells module, which is in the middle. It's not that small, it's not that big. What clients need is always a mystery. So installers, for example, have become used to small modules, but this started with a rule in Germany. So in Germany, rooftop installations were not allowed to have 2 square meters higher in modules. So why, and if this makes sense, this is another discussion, but that was the rule. So all products were adjusted to that. That rule is being withdrawn, and in certain, it has to be adapted also at the local province, let's say, regulations, in construction regulations and so on. So it takes a while, like Juan mentioned, I think quite well, regulations take a while. It was also mentioned by the European power. So it's not that it's immediately accepted. So this makes a difference because this allows manufacturers to maybe adjust a size that is a bit higher, but is still compressed. So what residential and what commercial and industrial rooftop needs is difficult to really read. So we try, and in this is an open, I think, information that manufacturers, tier 1 manufacturers, and the top ones in terms of volumes, they try at least to comply in a size, because otherwise we would be in the situation that we had in the past already, where I think it creates more confusion than motivation to have so many options. So we really try, but what is the limit? It's difficult because some installations that are considered commercial and industrial are also ground mounted, actually a big percentage, and modules for those installations are actually the ones that we think are for utility. So it's a difficult, let's say, task. So we have a reduced portfolio. We offer now, let's say, the very small modules with something in the middle, something from utility, so we don't create a bit of noises. And yes, maybe cell sizes may vary, but the important thing is that we are trying to standardize module sizes between big players so that there is a, let's say, more clear message for the final user and customer.
And maybe as a final question, I found one of the last slides that Jan from Solar Power Europe had quite interesting. And I personally also believe in this, that solar is not only about attachments, but solar is about integration. I think the EPBD, which will come, so the Building Performance Directive, will probably foster that. And I believe you also have products for that. Are you seeing that more and more integration already? And especially, of course, also for C&I, where you have big warehouses with roofs that cannot carry so much weight, so that you directly can integrate and have more lightweight products. Is this you are already seeing, or is this something for tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Maybe Joanna first, or
Honestly, we don't see that big interest on those applications with integration. We need to also go to the regional and to the specific country levels where for integrating modules, you have, I would say in some cases, too exhausting rules in terms of certification needed and rules needed for the integration in construction. So that's maybe what is a little bit lower down in some countries. In other countries where there is, let's say, less demand of those specific rules, because there are specific rules in terms of sizes, weight, certification, fire, we do have that experience. So it's not that we see it growing that fast. We believe it will come. We believe also, it's not the topic now, but also, for example, other integrations in terms of agri-PV and so on are becoming interesting, also regional, especially in France. So we see some trends, but it takes a while, I think, at least from our perception on adaptation. So this full integration in these new warehouses or buildings, we don't have that much demand yet, and we experience always the local concerns about certain certifications that are needed when you integrate a module as part of the construction, which is totally different than what we cover in the IAC in the standard module. So this is maybe the most challenging part, because you will need to adapt the product also to other constructional, let's say, tests. Even if you have something that you can say, okay, it's equivalent, it is not accepted. So we have that kind of, of challenging now, if we see it from the model perspective.
Yeah, maybe as a final, everyone, just 3 words on 3 topics. So for 2024, the biggest driver, the biggest challenge, and the most interesting market other than China for you. Who wants first? Shudong. Biggest driver, biggest challenge, and biggest market other than China. Oh, everyone, just 1 word.
Outside China or inside China?
Outside China.
Okay. Biggest
driver, challenge, market.
Driver, challenge, and market. Okay. So market is number 1 will be in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Because Netherlands can be accepted like some big change. So the driver still will be the electricity price.
Okay.
So if high electricity price, then really can be drive some storage solutions. The challenge is something like ecosystems. So this is something like I think right now it's not like, okay, only solar panel, only inverter mounting structure. Different segment player can solve this challenge, should work together to offer like ecosystems for final customer.
Okay, thanks. Johanna? And
that's a good one, Michael. I don't want to talk maybe for the, let's say, the whole company, because I think that if we consider that, we believe United States is also an attractive market for us in all the terms, storage and solar. So taking that out, if we, let's say, focus on Europe, we see interesting markets coming on, but as a global, if I combine, let's say, storage and solar, I would say Germany is still our interest market, but yeah, we see Poland, Spain, Netherlands. It's very difficult to now to give you only one challenge. I would say in terms of market, I would say policy is a challenge. Of course, for us, a challenge has manufacturers is leadership. So we really want to keep innovation, and innovation sometimes does not go with the price trend. It costs also more. So I think that's our more challenging. Yeah. And I will say that we do have this hope that all these regulations coming in Europe and also in local will be the main driver for our business.
Okay, super, thanks. Juan, final words?
Can't give you 3 words, but I'll say for the near term, the driver, energy, electricity rates, but a keyword here, hedging against electricity price volatility, right? At a time where retail rates are coming down. So we got to be careful with that nuance. And hedging against electricity price volatility for C&I at a time where we still have record low module prices, which will not be the case in a couple of years from now, potentially, right? So it's a fantastic opportunity for C&I to really benefit from that, which obviously from a cost stack perspective, the impacts are huge, specifically for large C&I. Did you ask about barriers as well? I think you did.
Yeah.
Barriers, from my perspective, I think there's still a lot of work around distribution grid saturation. Really thinking about the fact that industrial load, it's not really growing in Europe at the extent that it is in the US or in Latin America or in China. So like that we do have a question there. What's the ceiling of this market, considering that basically industrial growth demand with data centers and electrification and everything, it's still like a lot more conservative. And then the other thing, mentioned the Netherlands, I do agree up until we have that change of paradigm in 2027 there. But I will say one market that I'm particularly bullish about in the near term is Italy. And the reason for that is I think the regulation and the way the framework for energy communities and energy sharing, and the fact that there's no distance limit per se, it's really limited to connection points, and specifically in areas of Italy that are perhaps more rural, like not heavily industrialized. You can see a lot of benefits when you look at that regulation for collective self-consumption, which totally incorporates C&I. So I think I'm particularly interested in what happens in Italy, and my outlook is quite bullish in that case, in addition to some of the markets that Joanna and Shudong have mentioned.
Wonderful. I think that's nice final words for this panel. So I think there's a lot of markets to explore. Thanks to the panelists. I give back for the closing to my colleague, Anne.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Juan, Shudong, and Johanna for such an interesting panel discussion. Thank you so much. With this, our 2-day virtual conference on distributed solar comes to an end. Once again, I'd like to thank all our speakers and our sponsors for the conference. Before we end, let me quickly remind you that all TaiyangNews' latest solar PV technology reports and market surveys are available for free download on our website under Report segment. With that, we end today's virtual conference on distributed solar. We hope to see you all for our next event scheduled for June 4, 2024. It will be a special focus webinar on heterojunction. With Hwasun Energy, we will explore the key advances in cost reduction and efficiency to lower LCOE of heterojunction solar technology. Till then, keep reading Taiyang News. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
You too, John.
Yeah. So, Michael, so final presentation will be available to download in the TaiyangNews website. For example, if I'm interested in Jinko presentation or wooden Mac, can I download it?
We'll keep. So I think so. We only have usually the recordings of the recordings of the speeches will be on the website. Yeah.
Okay. So internally, if I need some Jinko presentation, I need
Just,
contact with Johanna. We can do some change. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care. Ciao, Shudong. Ciao, Jan.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.